The world can seem upside down at times, which has set me on a journey in search for love, truth, and ultimately personal freedom. Welcome to the Mack Show. Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome back to another episode of the Mack Show. I am Mack. Are you ready to be self-reliant? And is self-reliance even possible? In this awesome episode, I have Robert Toombs of Mountain Readiness discussing what it means to be sovereign, his incredible journey for the first, half of his life, first 20 years of his life, he lived in the woods, off-grid, no electricity. And this is an incredible story of what he learned and what he did in his life to build an incredible movement today with Mountain Readiness. So I'm really honored to have Robert on the podcast, and everyone, enjoy. Well, brothers and sisters, like I said, I'm so honored to have Robert Toombs on. We met at the Homesteaders of America conference, and right when I shook his hand, I said, okay, this is a brother right here. I could feel it. And Robert, really honored to have you on the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
You know, I couldn't agree more. And it was crazy. I don't believe in fate. And we even talked about that. You know, things, I believe things are predestined, and we were just meant to meet. I know we walked through first, and I was there with, you know, my good friend, Billy Bond, our partner there with the Sovereign Health Summit. And you know, we were trying to meet as many people as we could. And I met your associate that was with you. And, you know, of course, walking back through, I told Billy, I was like, man, I feel like I need to go talk to this guy. And he's like, are you sure? Like, we need to go. I was like, no, we need to talk to this guy. And then here we are. It was meant to be.
Yeah. That was a special time. That God's doing something amazing. You know, that's really, you know, whether say God or whatever, but I really feel like something incredible is happening right now where people are so turned off from everything. It's just exhausting. Even I saw a video this morning, ironically, on social media, but it was saying that social media engagement's declining since 2022, and it hit a peak in 2022 and is on the decline. And that gives me great hope, because people then, if we're not online scrolling, well, what are we doing? We're actually living. And
yes,
I love everything that you're doing and standing for. So I guess start at the beginning. I mean, you have really a cool story. I know I heard a little bit about it. You shared some with my brother, and then I learned more. I was like, oh, that's really cool. So, I mean, growing up, your earliest years, that was pretty unique. Why don't you share some of that?
Yeah. And on that social media thing, I just wanted to add to that. Like, I hope there comes a day that I have 0 views on my podcast. You know what I'm saying? Because that means we're in a better place, right?
Yeah,
it's a two-edged sword.
That's right. That's right.
Man, where do you start? My life was, from the get-go, would be considered very abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was not the norm. My father, when I was born, was 41 years old. He had already lived a good chunk of his life.
Wow.
And I'm the oldest of 3. And my father, he just he lived life in the fast lane. You know, he did all the things and moved all over the place. And, you know, he was living in California at the time. And he had a wife, a first wife. And when they got divorced, he just kind of decided that he was done with the world. You know, he was done with people. He was done with everything there was. It was just, he was turned off with the world. And I get it. Like, especially since you know, once I started creeping into that same age as my father was when he decided to become this recluse. You know, it's easy to cut yourself off from the world. You know, biblically speaking, it says, love not the world, lest ye be of the world, right?
That's right. That's
you know,
right.
I mean, it is a thing, but at the same time, you know, he despised everything about it. And so my father met my mother, and, you know, right out of the gate, you're talking about, my father is 41. She is the same age flipped backwards. So she's 14. And when they got married. And so that's a whole nother podcast. I mean,
Wow.
we can do this quite a few times.
Wow. Well, I'd love to. That's
You know, so
wow.
people look at these, they hear these things and they're like, oh my gosh, what kind of craziness, and I can't tell you, there was all kinds of moving parts to this. Everybody has a battle, everybody's got a struggle,
Yeah.
everybody has something going on in their lives.
Yeah.
It's easy to judge,
Yeah, sure.
but at the same time, that's how my life started. So I was born, my mother was 14, my father was 41,
Wow.
and he headed off into the wilderness. We lived off grid, no electricity, no running water. I remember we lived in a tent in the Ozarks of Missouri. It was a 4-person tent with a family of 5. And the military canvas tents.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember that was over a year we lived in that tent.
Wow.
And the only thing worse than a tornado in a trailer park is a tornado and a tent, because we had one go through right next to us. So it
Wow.
was exciting to see how fast that tarp, that canvas could rattle when a
Wow.
tornado was flying by. But it was crazy things like that. It was how we grew up. It was very hard.
Mm.
My father, he, I can remember we cut timber to make money. We actually mined iron ore, Missouri. We lived a lot through Missouri, and
Wow.
you could pickaxe the size of the hills and pull ore out. And so, you could fill a whole truck bed up full of ore, and that'd get you about $10. You can make it $10 for that.
Wow.
We
Jeez.
picked witch hazel. I remember picking witch hazel, stripping witch hazel. You fill up, 55-gallon trash bag and take that in, and the medical companies would buy it. Of course,
Wow.
if they would use it for medicine,
Yeah.
witch hazel patches and creams. And, so we made money like that all the time, arts and crafts and odd jobs. And that was just kind of our existence for, my first 15 years growing up. When you talk about survival and preparedness and self-reliance, I think television has give people this vision of what it looks like, and it's really nowhere near close to that.
Mm.
I remember growing up, the whole family, um, it is, what's the best way to put this? The hardest part about living like that is not that you have a fire running 24/7, whether it's summer or not, because you're not going to relight a fire to cook 3 times a day.
Yeah.
It's not about packing water, 15, 20, 25 gallons of water a day for a family of 5 every single day if you're not next to live water. The hardest part is dealing with yourself. The seclusion that comes with that type of lifestyle is you will drive yourself crazy at times.
Mm.
And so it was an interesting life. We literally had nothing but each other. We were cut off from a lot of the world, but at the same time, with being homeschooled, all of us were homeschooled for the most part throughout my younger years. We did a lot of going to homeschooling events, and later on, my mother started singing gospel music on the road. We traveled with an evangelist. And
Wow.
so, we traveled all over the United States and sang in every church you could possibly imagine. It was Baptist, Southern Baptist, United
Yeah.
Pentecost, Methodist. I mean, every single church, spiritual church. I mean it. Yeah, I've seen people backflip down the aisles, and
Yeah.
you name it. It just all kinds of interesting times. But that was basically it, man. We had one another, we had the Lord,
Mm.
and no matter how hard it was, it made me who I am today, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. A couple, I mean, were you aware of yourself in context of what other kids were doing? Were you constantly was it just a constant search of you guys have to have food, and so I mean, what was kind of your recollection of your self-awareness?
Um, we would go to school now and again. My father was a gypsy. He just he finally settled down here a while back, and God bless him. He was 90 years old this year, still
Wow.
cutting his own firewood, and I mean, he living out in the woods by himself. I mean, it's just,
Wow.
I mean, it's a testament to that. I mean, the guy is he is hardcore, to say the least. He is hardcore, but um, you know, we moved all over the place. I remember when I was 15 years old, I left home and started traveling around because I met all these people in these homeschooling networks.
Hmm.
And so, I moved, over to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I worked there. I was in Butte,
Wow.
Montana. Louisiana. I moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana when I was 17, and that was to take a job with the Amish as a driver. And that was the 79th time I'd moved, and I'd lived in 36 states at 17 years old.
Wow.
And so, we were just everywhere. It was insane how much moving. And once again, people look at that and they're like, that is insane. I'll tell a story, and people will look at me and they're like, we're so sorry. You get that,
Yeah.
oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, that was a funny story. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that was a good one. What do you? Yeah,
That was a good one. If you want me to tell you a sad one, I can hook you up.
yeah,
But
exactly. That's funny.
it's amazing what you can get used to. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I do say that the life that we live is what molds us into who we are today. And if you change one little thing, you change the man. But
Hmm.
we were aware of other kids. Like if we would move, we would have to go to school for a little bit. Then we'd get set back up, and mom and dad would pull us out of school, and we would go back to homeschooling. So we were aware, especially if we went into town to Walmart. That was like going to Wally World was the equivalent of an amusement park for us.
Hmm.
It was like seeing
Yeah.
lights and running water and all
Amazing.
that kind of stuff. But we did a lot of foraging and gardening. I can tell you that you never said you were bored,
Hmm.
because that meant split firewood
Yeah.
or weed the garden or
Yeah.
haul water or
Yeah.
do laundry by hand, scrub board. Uh, there was no such thing as boredom. It wasn't allowed. So, but we were aware of the world outside. It's just dad chose to not have any part of it.
Amazing. And your mom being 14, I mean, where was her family? And how was that
Yeah.
dynamic, or was there any relationship there?
You know, the story was that my grandmother told my mother if she didn't marry my father, she was going to put her in a girl's home.
Wow.
It was a very broken home
Yeah.
that my mother lived in. And so it was constant chaos and fighting and struggle.
Yeah.
And so it was for my mother, it was almost a godsend to get away from it.
Cool.
And so no matter how messed up it was, and I'm not saying that it wasn't pretty crazy, but at the same time, just like I said, us meeting, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And I can't say right or wrong, but the good Lord meant it to be. So it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, this is amazing. Um, Man, you're such a cool guy. I'm so
I
excited
know
to
that
have this conversation.
blows your mind. You're like, man, this went way off.
No, I love it. Are you kidding me? This is amazing. Um, Foraging. I got heavily into foraging in 2020, and freaking love it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
absolutely like, and we were in Washington State, so I was eating nettles, stinging
Oh,
nettles,
yeah.
braising them, and I love them. They taste like asparagus. I was having fiddlesticks from the ferns. I'm just going to town. I loved it.
Yeah.
Dandelions. We stopped
Yeah.
spraying our lawns and all that stuff. Then I come down to Texas, and there's acorns everywhere. And then one day I'm like, man, can you eat these things? I do the research. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
you can, what's it called when you, boil them in water or cold. You
Yeah,
can
you have to
leach it.
boil
You
them
leach all
multiple
the, yeah, get all
times.
the tannins
Yeah.
out. So I started getting into it down here. I've made acorn flour pancakes, scones, and people look at me like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Man, I'm just
Man,
forging.
that's
I'm
impressive
doing
though.
it."
That is a lot of work.
It took a
Good on
long
you.
time. It did. I cold bleached the one that I turned into flour. I started in October, and I couldn't use it until it was end of January. So it was a long time cold leaching, draining, filling it back up.
Right.
You know, but it was
Yeah.
awesome. And I'm like, man, this is why I bring this up, and don't make it about me. But coming back to you is, were you aware at the relationship between life? I guess what I'm saying is there's food everywhere,
Mhm.
but there's food nowhere. You really have to
Right.
figure out how
Right.
to find the food.
You
So
know,
I'm sure you're hungry
I,
most of the time, but tell me that
a
whole
lot.
relationship. Yeah.
I really like what you said too, though, about, when you were processing that for for your flour, it took all those months. And isn't it crazy in this day and age that we take for granted these things like that?
Yeah.
Right? You can go to the store and grab a thing of flour right off the shelf. It takes
Right.
2 seconds.
Right.
And but when you have to live that, like our forefathers did,
Right.
it changes the dynamics of everything. And so, that was kind of, I guess we could lead into your question right there is, we were hungry a lot. We were
Yeah.
good at being hungry,
Mm,
right? So most people are going to look at that and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's child abuse." Out in this day and age in society, to a degree, you could call it that. But at the same time, let's flip flop back, 100 years.
yeah.
Like, let's talk about pant size of Civil War era
Yeah, exactly.
male.
Yeah,
What was it?
exactly.
26-inch waist.
Right.
Man, I ain't seen a 26-inch waist since I was like 14.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
you know, and
Exactly.
so I think, I will tell you that, I have electricity right here, and I live in this house here in the hills, but there is a part of me that resents a lot of this because it will make you soft.
Mm,
And so growing up like that, you did not take anything for granted.
yeah.
Like everything that was cooked, you ate. There was nothing left over. It was consumed. It was used. Every single bit of what you took in, you made use of. If you
Mm,
processed that chicken, every single piece of that chicken was used, down to taking all the innards and the feathers and composting that.
wow.
Taking the bones and boiling it, making bone broth.
Mm,
Like there was no waste. And so we live in this instant gratification world.
mm,
Everything is just push button, and I think there's something to be said for that type of lifestyle, just appreciating
yeah.
appreciating these small things that we take for granted.
Yeah. Man, it's amazing. Um, One of the things, seems kind of random for me to ask, but I've been curious about immune systems and like areas where people live, the type of food they should eat, and the body like acclimates to the region and all the, I don't know, the allergens. Like when we got down here in Texas, man, I got bit by red ants. I swear they were searching for me all the time. I got scars all over. I'm like, man, these things, and they're the
Some
worst.
things are brutal too.
Oh, brutal. I mean, I have permanent scars on my ankle, but I haven't been bit since that year one. And then I was talking to someone about these chiggers because we got bit with red ants and chiggers. I was just getting destroyed.
Mm,
And then I haven't had them since just year one. And someone said that the enzymes in the body like change, basically your body chemistry changes to acclimate to that area.
right.
And so I'm fascinated by like they feed us food from the produce store that isn't in season, and there's a whole theory that people get sick because they're not eating in the seasons. But you traveling, for getting it back to you, is you traveling 37 different states. Did you feel
I,
like, how was your health growing up? I mean, that's really the question. I'm
you
curious.
know, I
You
health
must have a
wise we
really
were
good immune
good.
system. Yeah,
Health wise we were good, and and they do say, like, if you're going to eat honey, you should eat local honey. You should
exactly.
not eat
Yeah,
from else, because it's the body is acclimating to your area.
right.
And so but as far as being sick, most of the time we were pretty solid. But I think a lot of that was due to just what we ate.
Mm.
Yes, we went to the grocery store, but 9 times out of 10, bread, mom was making it. I can tell you, we had the old wood burner cook stove,
That's
wood
all.
burner cook stove had the tank on the side where you have your hot water tank. And we never had a house, most of the time. So dad would just have this little metal tin roof over the top of it. So it's set outside. And I
Wow.
remember that thing always burning. You didn't want to sit there and mess around trying to start it back up every time you want to cook.
Right.
So it just burned 24/7. And I will tell you that the bread mom made was the most amazing bread you've ever seen. It looked like something off of a commercial,
Wow.
cast iron bread pan with the golden big top, and smear homemade butter on it, and it was amazing. But as far as like health wise, I mean, we got sick, but usually it was when we were around people. You
Yeah.
pick
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
stuff from
Yeah.
everybody else.
Right.
I
Right.
can tell you that going to school, every time we would go to public school, we were sick as a dog for
Mm.
the duration.
Wow.
And then once we were out of school, we weren't exposed to all the germs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we were back to being good. And I remember running around, no shirt in the middle of winter. And I mean, it was, that was just a normal thing, so, but no, we had to be healthy. We didn't have the option.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. That's right. Um, so as you travel and obviously you know scripture really well. I can tell you're a man that knows the word. Even now, it's kind of funny, you know, the verse that whosoever will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God, and it's an interesting contrast to be in the world, not of the world. And how do you
Hmm.
find, you know, you leave 15 and you begin your own journey? How did you find yourself to where you're doing what you're doing now with Mountain Readiness and really standing for people to reclaim that
Mm.
sovereignty?
Yeah, I will tell you, when I left home, I just went off the deep end. Like,
Mm,
I mean, it's a fact. You grow up in family, Christian, and cut off from the world.
yeah.
And then when you go out there into the world, boy, it will eat you alive.
Mm,
And so that's what it was. When I went out on my own, I remember moving, with the Amish, and contrary to what everybody thinks, a lot of Amish drink a lot. So I started drinking a lot. I started drinking a lot underage, and living that lifestyle,
mm,
and multiple marriages.
mm,
And I will tell you that this world, I feel, is designed to sell us that white picket fence, 30-year mortgage. This is how you should live life, right?
mm.
um Even school itself is designed, I feel, to prepare you to be a good worker ant,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yep.
The bell rings, sit down. The bell rings, stand back up. Do what
Yeah.
you're told.
Yep.
Be a good worker ant. And it's crazy that the world, there is evil people that run this world.
Yeah. That's right.
And we battle not against flesh and blood,
Right.
right?
Yep.
But spiritual wickedness in high places, and that spiritual wickedness has been designing this world for us for ages to entrap us. And I fell for it. Even the upbringing that I had, I being poor as a child made me want to never be poor again. So I chased money. I chased that
Mhm.
dollar. I chase that piece of paper with dead people on it because
Mm,
that's all it is. Just a piece of paper
that's right.
that we sell our souls for,
Right.
and we talk about money being the root of all evil. And you look through the Bible and you look at Abraham. I mean, he was very wealthy.
Yeah.
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, everyone was. And so it's not the money, it's what you're willing to do for it
Yeah.
that makes it bad and what you do with it when you have it. And
Mm,
so I spent that life for years chasing a dollar as my kids. I have four children, two
mm.
sons, two daughters, um, two grandsons now. They're
Wow.
they're
Congratulations.
three and yeah, 3 and 6. And so or four and 6. And so, instead of growing a garden and taking the kids out to the garden and teaching them how to grow food, I took another job.
Mm,
So now I'm working 2 jobs. I'm working 3 jobs. I got to pay the bills. I got to pay for this. I got to pay for that. And I lost focus of what actually mattered. And
mm.
so 20 years of that, 20 years of that, I come full circle. And, my wife, Amber, we were living there outside of, right on the edge of Fort Wayne. I was in Fort Wayne for about 21 years, I think, 22 years. And the kids was just about all grown. And I told her, I was like, I'm tired of fighting with the city about I can't have a garden because I was like, it's time to get back to the basics.
Yeah.
Let's grow a garden. We had a
Yeah.
double lot in the middle of town. Let's put a garden in. We couldn't have chickens, of course. You can't have any livestock in the middle of town. But let's start with the gardening and I had some firewood stacked there, and so the city started just beating us up for, oh, you can't have that garden. That's attracts pests. The whole time there's a foreclosed house across the
Right.
street with six
Right.
foot grass. And I'm like, come on, my garden was manicured, to its finest.
Yeah.
And one day I just had enough. I come home and I told my wife, I was like, I'm done. I
Mm,
can't do this anymore. I can't live in the city. I can't be around these people. And I felt I ended up the same place that my father was, like I'm just done with everything. I'm done with civilization.
yeah.
And so we spent the next year traveling down here to the Carolinas. Well, we started out in Tennessee and then Carolinas, Virginia, and we just happened to find this place by accident. It was the last place for a year. We would leave on Friday night, drive all night, 500 and something miles one way,
Wow.
uh, stay up, and then look at properties. We'd have properties already set up with realtors, and so we would just stay up the whole Saturday, and
Wow.
we get us a hotel, sleep, get up Sunday, look at more properties, and then drive all the way back to Indiana, 500 and something miles. And we did that for almost a year, looking for a place until we found this one. And that's a whole nother story. That was a whole nother craziness,
Wow.
fighting against every single odd. It seemed like everything is a fight. It seems like, but
Mm,
but at the same time, I guess it makes it more worthwhile when you finally get it
yeah.
accomplished.
Yeah. What did you do for work during those 20 years? Like what occupation did you go into?
I was in construction ever since I was 15.
Yeah.
We were living in Arkansas, outside of Bruno Payette, way up in the middle of nowhere. We were living in a shed. It's like an old horse shed, and it
Wow.
was it was it was about to fall over. So we had timber propped up on the back side of it, and then on the inside, dirt floor, and we lined the inside with cardboard, stapled it up to keep the draft from coming through.
Wow.
And that was where we were living. And I ended up getting a job with the old man down at the bottom of the hill, who was a brick mason.
Hmm.
And so I started out doing masonry. And then when I went out and started traveling around, I kept going on. And when I ended up in Fort Wayne at 17, that was I got on a framing crew with the
That's great.
Amish. And so that's where I really cut my teeth in the construction business, was working with the Amish. I mean, as far as tradesmen, they're
Yeah,
amazing
yeah, I
tradesmen.
was gonna say, so you went to real
Yes.
quality craftsmanship and yeah, and work.
Well, we had a lot in common too, is except for that they had houses, but no electricity, all that kind of stuff. They actually asked me if I wanted to become Amish, and I was like, I don't know, but I kind of like driving my vehicle,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that they
That's
offered,
fascinating.
they're like, so, and I still know a lot of the Amish, real good friends with a whole lot of those guys and gals
Wow.
down there, but that was it. It was construction, working with that. And in 2008, when the market took a dive, construction was,
Yeah.
obsolete at that time. And I ended up getting a job with the city of Fort Wayne as a part-time. I took a part-time job. They call it a hostler, washing and fueling buses.
Wow.
When you got a little kids, you do what you got to do. So I was working there part-time from 6 to midnight, washing and cleaning buses for the public transportation department. And I was working at a fiberglass fabrication shop in the day. I was bartending on the weekends,
Wow.
and it was just this stuck in this rut, the
Yeah.
hamster on the wheel.
Yeah.
And but yeah, construction, then started my own construction business. And I still do construction. It was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's awesome. The reason I ask is you went from you must have had skills. I didn't know you did construction, but you had to learn a lot of that skill growing up. I'm sure just being
Oh
handy and
yeah.
figuring it out and using your brain and your body. And you're doing that now, I know, on your 40 acres because see what you
Oh yeah.
posted and you're working your butt off again, And
Oh man, I tell you what, I breathed enough smoke to kill a small Asian elephant. Man, I'm out here burning brush, and we're trying to get more pasture land up here on the hills because we've got 40 acres, but it was almost all wooded.
Mm,
So except for where the house was at, and so it's clearing. It takes forever to clear and burn off and plant and get good pasture established. So we're kicking up our poultry production because we actually process and sell to the public. We
awesome.
have our poultry exemption, and so we're expanding that. But yeah, man, construction, and then when we finally found our place here, I ended up taking. Of course, I was a mechanic for the city of Fort Wayne, and it was crazy. It was everybody told us we were nuts. Which I was like, yeah, that's nothing new. I mean, this life, you gotta be crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but my wife, she worked at Avery Dennison Corporation. Great job. I worked for the city, 15 years, vested, union. I was the union steward of the shop.
Wow.
Um, I was second in seniority, pension, the whole bit. And I was basically a Starbucks taste tester. I just walked around, drink coffee, and told everybody what to do. And so I got this great job, but every time I turn around, I just feel like I'm in the wrong spot. I'm just
Mm,
not in the. I should be somewhere else, and that's why my wife, as a joke, she sent me this ad. We've been looking for property. She sends me this ad, and it was for a tire service. And
mm,
it was a joke because as a union tech, you have a tire guy, you have the engine guy. When you're union, you don't do tires unless you're the tire guy.
yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
didn't do tires, and it was a joke. She sent it to me, and so I was having a bad day, and I called that number. And 3 months later, I was living here in Wilkes County, working on trailers as a road service tech,
Wow.
doing tires. So, I mean, and everybody told me they were nuts. You guys, you're pension, you're a union tech, your wife's got a great job, you guys, your house is paid for, you guys have got it made, and
Right.
you're just gonna give it all up and move 5 states away. And I was like, absolutely, you
Wow.
know.
Yeah.
So at 36, I headed down here, and 3 months later, my wife came down. Took, of course, a year to sell the house there in Indiana. It was crazy, paying two mortgages, and
Wow. Yeah.
but the Lord will provide one way or another.
Mm, man.
And so here we are, 10 years later.
Amazing. Amazing, man. Amazing. What, when did you start? So you're at the property, and then when did you get the the call or the vision to start Mountain Readiness and just the whole message that you're now bringing to people in the world?
That was this coming May will be our fourth spring Mountain Readiness.
Awesome.
So almost 4 years ago, you know, people have, yeah, I tell you, anybody that says they got it all figured out, they're either lying or they are
Delusional.
incredibly
Yeah,
stupid.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, or
I don't want to say
stupid.
it like that, but like,
Yeah.
you know, there is self-sufficiency. I'm going to tell you,
Mm,
it's a sham.
mm,
You can't be self-sufficient anymore in this world.
mm,
You just can't.
right.
Like you can, my good friend Alan Kay, who won season 1 of Alone.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Alan is an amazing human. He's probably one of the best survivalists I've ever seen. He's done all kinds of stuff way beyond what that show was.
Wow.
But we were sitting around and he was like, look, he's like, why do you keep using that word self-reliance and self-sufficiency? He said, it's all garbage. I was like,
Mm,
what are you talking about, man? He's like, look, you can walk in any direction and within an hour you will run into something or someone of human civilization. He
mm,
said, this isn't the backwoods, great wilderness anymore. He said
right.
there's people everywhere. He said, how are you? He said, you raise chickens. Do you process your chickens? I was like, well, yeah, I process chickens. He's like, do you grow their grain that you feed them? I'm like, well, no, but I free range them. He's like, so will they stay alive the whole time? And
Mm,
I'm like, well, no, I got to buy grain, and so we have all these dependencies, we
yeah.
have all these dependencies. And I started seeing all these things. I'm like, wow, all this time when I was growing up, we weren't self-sufficient. We were just really good at starving.
Mm,
Right.
okay,
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we were good at starving.
Yeah.
And so people you see all over the internet, all over social media, oh, self-sufficient. I'm off grid.
Right.
Like you're not,
Yeah. Right.
so,
Right.
I was like, I feel the need that we need to do something to bring people together to not become maybe self-sufficient, but to get as close as you possibly can. And,
Mm,
and look, if you can make it happen, cool. Like if you can raise your own, you've got enough time on your hands and property to grow grain, to feed all your
yeah.
livestock and all this, and you close that loop, then good on you, but at this time, people think chicken come from Wally World. Like
Right. Right.
they think it comes in a package. There's kids running around that thinks chicken nuggets. That's how it was
Right.
made. It
Right.
grew like
Talked
that.
out like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Here's a chicken nugget, and
Right.
I'm like, um, so there was a lot of different events around, and I just felt like something was lacking. And I told my wife, I was like, Amber, I think we can do something to bring people together that taught them all aspects of preparedness,
Mm,
like homesteading. But if you homestead, then you need to be able to defend your homestead.
yeah. That's
So
right.
now you have that aspect of it.
That's right.
And in prepping, all these labels that we put in on everything, it's really not prepping. It's what our forefathers and our ancestors did on the daily basis.
Yeah. That's right.
So,
That's right.
I just wanted, and that's when we started 4 years ago. We we were like 4 months from the first Mountain Readiness. We built and I would tell you, my wife is the tech person. I am not that guy. I'm surprised that my microphone worked when we got on this podcast, to be completely honest. I thought I was going to have to go into the settings, but she put together our website. We put together all of our social media. We actually bought our very first ticket because we thought something was broken on the site. So I paid double taxes on that first ticket.
Wow. Wow.
And come to find out, it worked just fine. And then something changed, and all of a sudden, we ended up with 500 people at our very first event.
Wow.
And so that was a pretty good event for the first one out of the gate. But that was me and my wife and my daughter and a couple friends, and we somehow pulled it off. And after we recuperated, took about 2 weeks from the beating that we took, because I was like, how hard can it be? You buy some tents, you put some classrooms up. Wow, it's way harder. It's
Mm.
way harder than what it looks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so after we recuperated, I was like, let's do it. Let's do it again because we process chickens hands on. This coming May I've got Billy Bond and his son William. We're going to be processing a sheep.
Wow.
We're going to be doing composting, do actual composting classes. I'm horrible with books. And so I'm a big hands-on person.
Yeah.
And I love to see people get hands-on. Like when we do our chicken processing, like these people have never even touched a chicken before in their lives.
Mm.
Like, and to see their faces when they're from farm to table,
Yeah.
the appreciation. Now, of course, there's some shock to it. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know it looked like that when you were, processing chicken." But
Yeah.
The appreciation at the end, seeing everybody take that animal and then put it to the point of where we would usually be pulling it off the shelf at a big chain store.
Mm.
I love that because we have gotten away from that. We've gotten
Yes.
away from living that lifestyle.
Yes. And even last night, so my son went hunting with my brother, went out on his lease, and we did predator hunting and thermals at night. We just had
Oh,
a blast and got some really beautiful, beautiful predators, a fox, and but my son, he's like, man, Uncle John, can I get a bunny? Can I get in? My brother's like, yeah, shoot. So we smacked this bunny and then we processed it and I slow cooked it yesterday and
oh
I
yeah.
killed it off for lunch today. I mean, it was amazing and my daughters all loved it and everyone loved it. And I'm like, this is life. This is how it works, and this is like these people who don't understand the full regenerative circle of life, that how we live, how our food comes from, really, I think are so out of touch with themselves. How can you know yourself if you don't know where your food comes from? Or even how in and of itself it becomes food. And so I love that you're teaching that and doing that. It's amazing. My son was blown away. He's watching, like processing the rabbit. My son's like, holy crap, it's amazing. And,
No, that's
it's awesome.
man, that is great too. I had we processed 140 chickens here a couple weeks ago. My daughter come over, my son-in-law, my two grandsons were here. We're out here, processing chickens all together.
Wow.
And that doing as people look, isn't it sad? I think it's just so sad. I know your brother was talking about how he had taken like some elk to the school for this lunch or whatever, like taco thing,
Yeah.
and how offended people were that
Right.
he brought this elk. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I'd throw down on that elk.
Oh man, elk meat. If anyone has elk meat, I'm like, yes,
man.
please.
Yeah, sign me
Yeah.
up. But
Yeah.
like we are so detached from who we're supposed to be in this day and age, man.
Mm.
And people look at these, like processing animals. You got to watch what you post on social media
Yeah.
of that. And they're like, oh, that's so cruel. That's so, I'm like, our animals that we raise, we give them the best life we can possibly give them.
Yeah.
Like they are taken care of better than some people. Like they are moved to fresh areas every single day. They eat non-GMO organic feed. We free range them,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, what people don't, I think they've lost touch with is that you love that animal and you respect that animal because its life is to give you life.
Yeah.
Like there's this
Yeah.
reverence, and in other countries, you see, they actually, it's almost like, I mean, they're saying a prayer. I know I watch people over in the Middle East with before they kill a goat. Like it's this big reverent thing.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, it should be, and that's what I think all these people they lose touch of. They're like, oh, it's cruel. No, it's not. It's how God intended us to live.
That's right.
And and we love those animals. My wife and I, our animals, all 140 of those chickens.
Yeah.
Um, I'll give you an example, not to rattle, but we had two chicks that one of them got wry neck, so it was, sickly. Its head was twisted under,
Yeah.
and the other one had lost an eye. Somebody pecked it.
Mm,
Most homesteads would take those chicks and chuck them.
mm,
All right, because the time it takes to put into, you're talking time versus money, and
yeah.
I can never be that person. So we pulled those chicks and we nursed them back to health. And we actually got them. They ended up the biggest two chickens of the entire bunch because
Wow.
they were living so good. We had
That's
them in the
amazing.
penthouse,
That's amazing.
and people were like, why didn't you just, why did you waste all that time? Why didn't you just get rid of them? I'm like,
Mm,
that animal's life is precious. And um, if you just did that, its life was in vain.
yeah. Yeah. And this is how I look at God. The Bible declares God a few different things as declarative, like God is love and God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. And those that walk in the light as he is in the light, the blood of Jesus cleanses us from all unrighteousness. Like God is, twice it says, God is light and God is love. So love sustains and light sustains all life. There is no life without love. Love is like oxygen. Everything in existence has a relationship with it, and it's a symbiotic. Nature releases carbon dioxide or releases oxygen. We breathe the oxygen in, we express carbon dioxide, it sucks it up. And there's this relationship between man and nature. And I think when we understand that all things are sustained by love, then we can understand that animals are actually some of the highest form of God's expression of love in this world. Because when he says that greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for a friend, we actually, people that don't understand how much these animals love us, I really believe that they are choosing the highest form of love to give themselves to sustain our life. And whether that's a justification or not, I really, that's how I look at it. That these animals, I thank them for their love, like thank them for their life. It's an incredible thing. Like, wow, God, you made things that love us. And there's predator and there's prey. And my brother was teaching my son the other night. He's like, my son's like, well, why can't we deer hunt and thermal? My brother's like, well, there's this fair act law or whatever where he's like, my brother and my son, he's a smart little guy. He's like, well, I mean, how does that work? And my brother's like, well, there's there's predator and prey, and who's the predator of all the predators? And my son's like, us? And he's like, exactly. So they want to limit the predators because if you have too many predators, not enough prey. And my son's like, okay. But even I think predator, like it's all big. There is no life without love. And this is what I want to, this is my message. Like these animals really love us. I've seen a deer, a huge mule buck stop, and my buddy, and you could just see it. It was like it was just willing. I don't know. It didn't run. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't do it. It could have, and it just like was in this moment. And we're in the backwoods of Washington State, like in the middle of nowhere, and it just gave itself. And I'm like, man, that's this. I don't know who's listening. They're like, what the heck are they talking about? But I really believe that love is the truth of all things, and God allowed these animals in the highest form of love's expression to give their life so we can live. That's how I see it.
Absolutely. No, I mean, you nailed it. You know, I can tell you that processing, we processed all those chickens, and those two that we nurse back to health. You get this way, a much deeper attachment to it. And and it is, you kind of get a little tear jerk right there,
Sure. Yeah.
try because, and you should because taking life is not a good thing, but God gave us dominion
Yeah.
over all of these animals for a reason.
Yeah.
This is our purpose here on life.
Mm.
And it's this perfect marriage is the same thing. You have God and you have his people and you have the the husband and the covering of the wife and the
Yeah.
family. All these things are structured that way for a reason. And
Yeah.
the further we push against that, which is what we are doing in society today,
Mm.
we are fighting against what God structured for our lives to be,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, and it's not just hunting animals. It's the structure of the church. It's the structure of
Yeah.
of marriage.
Right.
We keep fighting against, leave it to man to take something perfect and
Mm.
mess it up.
Mm.
And that's what we've
Absolutely.
done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of the words I talk a lot about is honor. We've just lost honor because we've lost the sense of love. Without understanding that something's greater. I talk a lot about there's this painting by Raphael. It's called The School of Athens, and it's all the great philosophers in and Greek philosophy and Roman philosophy at the time. And Raphael paints this, and Plato is he has his right hand up and his index finger up in the air, and he's looking at Aristotle. Aristotle's hands out with his hand down, his right hand. And the great debate was whether there was universal truth or just particular truth. So Plato only believed in universal truths, like justice. We must understand what justice is, apply ourselves to justice, no matter if we're in North Carolina, Texas, or Nairobi, Africa. And then Aristotle rejected the concept of, or maybe it was Socrates. I think it was Aristotle. Anyway, whoever Plato's pupil was, rejected the notion of universal truths and only believed in particular truths. So how you and I define justice can be different than how someone else defines justice, and that's just fine for them. But that's becomes relational relativism, and you know, you get a gun, I'll get a gun, you get a bigger gun, and it always leads to conflict. And you see these two theories, and I always talk about that John 3:16 combined both. Like God always supersedes man's logic. It says, "For God so loved the world, universal, that
Yes.
whosoever particular." So God's always bringing it's not an or, it's an and, it's a universal truth and a particular truth. But when we lose sight of this, we lose sight of honor, we lose sight of love, we lose sight of proper order, like you're saying. And I think what you're doing is I'm going to say beautiful. I don't know if you've ever been described the way you're doing. It's beautiful, but it's such
No,
a
that's
beautiful mission and message because, like, we talked that one day. I have this right here. It says, heart and earth share the same letters. And when you take the H of heart and you move it to the end, you get earth. And I really believe that the more we connect back to the earth, God's bringing us back to our heart, back to his heart.
absolutely. No, I think that's what really, when we first talked there at HOA, you talked about, and I don't even know why we started talking about it. It was just crazy how it went down. You were
Yeah,
talking about
yeah.
your last job and how you refused
Oh,
to
yeah.
bow down,
Yeah.
to what was considered the
Yeah.
right thing to do.
Yeah.
And how, you with the I believe you said your wife was pregnant at the time,
Seven
right?
months, 7 months pregnant.
Right. And then all of a sudden you're jobless and you're
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
know what? Whatever.
Yeah.
God's going to take care of me
That's it.
because I'm going to put God's law above man's law.
That's right.
And it blew me away. I was like,
Mm.
Billy, this is why we were supposed to stop by here and talk to this
That
guy
gives me
right now.
chills. Yeah. Yeah. What's so interesting too? I don't know. I used to run my own ministry. Used to be on staff with some big churches, a worship leader, and I was on staff. Been in that world so heavy, and I've left that world the way I grew up in that world, and but I couldn't understand like the verse in Jesus says, "Those will seek to save their life, the same shall lose it. Those who
Yeah.
are willing to lose their life for my sake and the gospel, the same shall save it." I couldn't understand. I'm looking around like who's we have to be willing to lose our life. I don't understand this. And it didn't make sense to me then. It actually made me sad that most people were just trying to save their life and fit into a club that doesn't want them anyway, versus
Absolutely.
I just want to fit into God's club, and I just have one person to answer to at the end of this life, and I want to hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant."
No, I spent years fighting against it. I grew up I tell everybody I grew up out in the sticks, and I spent the next 20 years trying to run away from it,
Mm.
just to come full circle to fight to get back to where I started. You know, I started, religious family and singing gospel music and living off the land, I'm not really ready to go back to lanterns. I'm good with the electric
Yeah.
lamp,
Yeah.
for now, as long as it's around, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But then that 20 years, it was like, I was mad. I was mad at God. I was mad I was just mad at the world in general,
Yeah.
because I was like, why did I have to live like that? I'm done with that. That was not for me. And then, you come full circle and you grow older, and the next thing you know, you're like, wow, I need to get back to that.
Yeah.
And all through the Bible, you look at all of our great men of the Bible.
Yeah.
King David, where he started and where he ended.
Yeah.
Fighting against God. Doing things that he's not supposed to do.
Right.
All of them. Noah. Look at
Right.
Noah. Just
Right.
it even talks about how he was just, he wasn't even a favorable, he was just the best there was left. He wasn't good.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
That's right.
you had all these problems and drunkenness and all this, and
Yeah.
God come down and he was like, hey, look, you need to do this.
Yeah.
You need to put this ark together. But all these people, it's crazy that we are so much alike. We were made in his image,
Mm.
and we fight against it just to come full circle, and here we are again,
Mm.
and I don't know, it's a humbling thing for me. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy how the older you get, if you truly love the Lord, how you grow that spiritual growth.
Yeah.
I fought with everything I had to leave all that life behind,
Yeah. Yeah.
but if the Lord means you to be somewhere, then you're going,
Yeah.
kicking and screaming,
Yeah.
but you're
That's
going to
right.
go.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You know, I love I do this podcast. People listen. I get really sweet messages from people all over the world. It's been really nice, but it's not the biggest audience. But part of it, I tell my wife, I just love to have these beautiful conversations with the coolest people. I'm blown away. I'm so thankful for you, brother. And like,
You as well.
and hearing your heart and we haven't even got into like even I want to hear more about what you're talking or what you teach. But one of the things as you're speaking that I'm just reminded, and I shared this with someone at work the other day. They came to me and they're like, I've been praying for you. And I'm like, praying for me? She's like, yeah. She's like, people are praying for you. And I was like, it gets me choked up. Like, I was like, what is going on? And she's like, people are praying for you. And we kind of got in this conversation. I said, it's interesting as I rejected all that for a long. I really like in 2020, I did a podcast episode why I left Christianity to find the love of God. And it's just beautiful hearing you. And I shared with this lady, why I'm bringing this up is I really have settled into my heart. It's the goodness of God. I mean, this is what the Bible says. It's the goodness of God that leads us unto repentance. It's not sermons and articulation and unction or fire. It's none of that. It's just the goodness of God. And as I'm hearing you're talking about this returning back, and it's like, man, that's God has been good in your life. You got great with starving so that you could be grateful with what you have. And there's just something so beautiful and poetic and God glorifying in this story of yours.
I appreciate it. No, and I thank the Lord for it. It's
Mm.
I've never had the word poetic used in reference to me though. I appreciate that. There's a
Yeah,
first time
you're
for
welcome.
everything.
Beautiful and poetic. You take that.
Yeah, man, I'll take that all day long.
That's
So,
hilarious. That's
uh,
hilarious.
it's, and I'm not gonna bash anything of Christianity, but I will tell you that Christianity today has just become so rooted in making money.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
do you see that like
Oh,
mainstream
yep.
Christianity? You know,
Yep.
I was the same way, and that's kind of what put a bad taste in my mouth,
Yep.
was growing up in all these churches, watching a lot of these churches of how they were run, and the focus was on that plate.
Yep.
The focus was on those ties.
Yep.
And I very rarely darken the doorstep of a church that was focused on God,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I remember there was a church that I went into, and they had a tithe box on the wall as you come in, and it was separate from where you were seated,
Mm,
and they passed no plate,
yeah.
and you just gave what you felt compelled to give
Yep.
between you and the Lord.
Yep.
And I'm not, I'm fine with the plate and tithing and passing the plate and things like that. But what I'm getting at is that's kind of what pushed me away from Christianity, was growing up like that and
Yeah.
seeing all those type of things. And, you know, Jesus, he went to the wilderness to be baptized by John the Baptist in the middle of nowhere, you
Yeah.
know, because where two or three are gathered together,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
You don't have to have this big, huge, lavish
Right.
building. And then that's what you just said. You were talking about, the big building. And all. It doesn't matter. It's just right now, you and
Yes.
I,
Yes.
where two or three are
Yes.
gathered together.
That's right. Yeah. It's
I feel that. I feel that tingle when
yeah.
we
Same right now. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Same. I
know,
have it on my shoulders, and I think that's what's so beautiful is people. God is real, and God is true, and the more we can separate from the digital illusion and the the Pinocchio story of the guy who takes all the foolish children into that playground or whatever it was and then locks them up and they become donkeys and jackasses and this they tell us these stories over and over. I don't think to warn us, to mock us, because they keep doing it, but I think, well, I know we met at HOA. I talked to Amy the other day, the founder of that, and so many more people are hungry and thirsty for truth. And they're going to find truth when they return to the land. They're not going to find truth as they search the digital
no.
galaxy. My wife's joke is, our joke in our house is, she's like, "Have you almost solved it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've almost solved it." Like, hey, just if I find one more video, I'm going to solve this whole thing. And it's unsolvable. It's the fire that saith not, it is enough. It's never enough. But
Yeah.
when we get back to the earth and the land and so funny, I think too, like, I was talking to and I know you probably got to run here in a second. I know we're going long, but the guys that run the National Prayer Breakfast were kind of mentors to me for a long time. And when I stepped away from Christianity, I went into the New Age world. Gone into every camp I think that I could find, and earnestly sought truth, wanted to understand what people were learning as them, not to contend with them. And they said, you got to be careful. And I said, the Bible says, Malachi 3:6, "I am the Lord, I change not." And if God grafted the Gentiles into the vine to provoke the Jews to jealousy, then I think he's grafting other groups into the vine to provoke whatever group was previously grafted in so that we can provoke them to jealousy. So I'm seeing the new age world get this message of unconditional love. Are they living it? No, but are they're wrestling with this concept of, you're seeing the hippies returning back to the land. And what I'm saying is there's like these movements that will always be, and they can always be co-opted. But at the end of the day, it's funny that we're talking about, love and animals, land, and it's all these things that I grew up like, oh, it's so hippie, like tree hugger stuff. But it's like, man, there's a truth and beauty and a purity if you can strip away all the garbage and nonsense. We're returning back to understand the creator, creation, and how we fit inside all of it. And man, it's just cool hearing your story. I was even thinking, man, it'd be a cool documentary to tell the story of Robert.
I I thought about writing a book, but I'd have to publish it as fiction. You know, like nobody would even believe half this stuff.
Hey, hey, that's how
So, you
that's how
know, no, I
disclosure
mean
happens.
you really no, you're dead on the money. Like we we as a civilization, we just have gotten so far away from the earth.
Mm.
You know, I tell you, we read the Bible and scripture growing up as kids, but it wasn't to the extent. I think just that lifestyle in general, it is
Is the
God,
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's
living
right.
like
Yes,
that,
yes.
because his creation, like when you were in touch and when you were in tune with his creation, you were as close to God as you can possibly be, you
That's right.
know, because these things and all
Yep,
this type of stuff,
yep.
it's designed to pull you away from him. I remember, you know, I talk about my friend Alan Kay who won alone. He said when he got back, you know, he was 56 days there on Vancouver
River
Island.
Island. Yep.
He said when he come back home, he could not go into the house for almost a week. He said he could hear the electricity and vibrations in the
Wow.
house. And he
Wow.
said it was in his head. It was almost driving him nuts. He
Wow.
said, I couldn't even go into the house for almost a week because of the sound. He said it
Amazing.
was like this vibration. And, you
Amazing.
know, once again, nothing against electricity and things like that, but it's like, you know, that's why I started. You know, when Billy, of course, I met Billy Bond with the first Mountain Readiness, and so we got along great. Billy is an awesome human being. He's just one of
Yeah.
these people that you just when he speaks, you can relate. You know,
Mm.
he's one of those guys,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just like us talking.
Yeah.
And you know, we wanted to, that's why we put the Sovereign Health Summit together, you know, was to bring people together that circadian and alternative health, you know,
Mm.
the electricity and these lamps and being able to turn all these lights, that's not how it's meant to be.
Right.
Like we're not supposed to be awake when, you know, a candle at the most. And
Yeah.
I think we damage ourselves physically and emotionally and even spiritually
Mm.
because our body is not, it's not designed, just like you said with seasonal eating.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are not meant to be able to go to the grocery store
Mm.
and get a whole bag of oranges
Right.
right in the
That's right.
middle of winter.
Yeah. That's right. That's
Like
right.
you were not designed for that. And then, and people's, you know, if you're slamming a whole jug of orange juice, what is it? Like 1 cup of orange juice is like 10 oranges.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your body is not made to do that, but it's the world we live in. And so, you know, I think, you know, getting back to where we where you were talking about is, you know, the closer you are to the earth
Mm.
and the way we used to live,
Yeah.
you shouldn't even call off grid. You should just call it
Land.
normal living, the
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
that we were meant
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
live.
Right. Could be like pretty soon be
You're
like,
like,
oh, you live on you live with electricity running through your house.
yeah,
Weird,
what?
or yeah, it's so
Yeah.
opposite,
But no, that's where we're at. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you know, the early to bed, early to rise thing, like you're supposed to wake up and see that sun, that circadian health,
Yeah.
that clock, you know, pulling in the sun's rays.
Yeah.
I was talking to Billy about this, you know, and we have run long and, but I get started talking,
No, I
man.
love
It's
it. I
hard to
love it.
shut
Go.
up.
No, I'm not in a hurry. Yeah, no,
But,
this is great.
but you know, isn't it crazy that I'll tell you, Jack Kruse. I don't know if you've heard of Jack Kruse
No.
or not.
Uh-uh.
He was one of like a top neurosurgeon,
Hmm.
and he is huge on the first 10 minutes of the sun as it comes up, staring directly at it.
Wow.
And then once it starts to crest, you start getting that UV, you're done. But that first 10 to 15 minutes, he said, is the most important thing for your health that you can possibly do.
Wow.
He said when he is doing his brain surgeries, that if he could change one thing, he would take the person outside in the sunlight while he performed the brain surgery. He said it's
Wow.
that important
Wow.
for healing, for healing. Check him out, Jack Cruz. I'll text you.
Okay.
I'll text you the one that he talks about circadian health and the sun. But I found it really interesting that the sun plays such a important role in our health and life. You know, it brings life.
Yeah.
I mean, how many different you know, the Egyptians, you know, worship the sun,
Right,
the Incas, the Aztecs.
Right.
But when you look at the Bible, it says, where does it say to look when Christ returns? Is to the east.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is it to the east? Look to the east
So good.
for that sun, for the sun, you know? And I just thought it was, I don't even know where I got off on that.
That's
you know,
awesome.
But it's, for me, it's like this, once again, back to the earth.
Yeah.
Back to the earth.
That's right. Brother, I'm so thankful for it. I want to have many more conversations, podcasts, and thanks for coming on. I'm going to put Mountain Readiness, the website, in the show notes. What else would you like me to plug? The Sovereign Health Summit.
Yeah, Mountain Readiness and the Sovereign Health Summit. You know, we have Mountain Readiness West. So we got Mountain Readiness Expo that's there in Harmony, North Carolina in May, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And then we have Mountain Readiness West, which we're doing in Montana, which is the 24th, 25th, and 26th. We're going to be up in Swan Lake, like an hour from Glacier National Forest. So that's God's country right there.
Yeah.
100%. And then, of course, the Sovereign Health Summit, October the 27th through the 31st, right there in Harmony, North Carolina again. And that one there, I'm stoked about all of them, but we focused a lot with Mountain Readiness on, you know, tactics and homesteading and permaculture and hands-on practical skills. But the health side of it, we kind of neglected. You know, shame on me for that. And I think we even talked about this is, you know, if you don't have your health, all that cool gear is just stuff.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter. You know, 100%. Health is your number one.
100%.
You know, you got to have health. So, you know, we're really stoked about that one because we've got not only Barbara O'Neill speaking multiple times a day, we've got Dr. Tenpenny's going to be there.
Awesome.
We've got Doc Lee Merritt. We've got Jonathan Otto. We've got, I mean, literally the biggest voices in circadian and alternative health.
Amazing.
There are all in one spot for 5 straight days.
It's going to be amazing. I'm going to be there. I can't wait. And God bless you, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for this awesome conversation. Everyone go check out all that stuff. And brother, I look forward to the next one.
Hey, absolutely, Lucas. Thank you. And we got to get you on mine as well.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, brother, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone go check out Mountain Readiness, follow Robert, and support his mission. The Sovereign Health Summit is going to be incredible with Barbara O'Neill. Make sure you go check that out. I'm looking forward to being there. And everyone, regardless of where you are in this journey, whether you're just in the beginning stages of the awakening, whether you are yourself a longtime veteran in this journey, there is always more love. There is always more life ahead in this present moment to receive the love of God, to walk in his presence, and to allow God's love to flow through every ounce of your body and to permeate the world that you're creating. And I hope that is what you're going to do here in 2026. Thank you for joining this podcast. I am Lucas Mack. This is the Lucas Mack Show, and I'll talk to you on the next episode. Thank you for listening. If you're struggling to break free and need support, go to my website at lucasmack.com. There you'll find resources like videos and ebooks, and also information on how to work with me for coaching. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.